here today on Bowden Farms with Russ Ashford. So Russ, can you tell us a bit about the landscape of your farm and the stewardship that goes into it?
Okay, so Bowden Farm has been in my family's occupation since mid-1950s. We've always farmed the farm traditionally. We're organic, we've been organic since 1997. The farm is in countryside stewardship and also the Sustainable Farming Incentive Scheme. I'm passionate about keeping livestock farms like this that are all grass, keeping the habitat within the hedgerows and woodlands as they've always been managed.
So Hazel, you work with Russell on the Boundary Boost NEIRF project. Can you tell me a bit about your role on the project?
Sure. So I'm employed by Dartmoor Hill Farm Project, which is really the farm team within Dartmoor National Park. We're a small team, but our role is to work with and support farmers. It's very broad ranging, so it can be helping them with schemes or queries, but we also develop and run projects ourselves. And so when the NEIRF project opened, it was something that we were interested in doing, to obviously look at how we can potentially develop other routes of financing. So obviously being on Dartmoor, they are upland and extensive grassland systems, which are, hard environments to farm in. You are very limited about what you can do generally because of the landscape. So we wanted to build on those natural assets that the farms do have, for example the hedges, to work out how can we build into value and how can we work with the farmers to understand a way that they would be happy for that to be working in practice. And so yeah, we've been really lucky that we've worked with that, but Russell is one of 10 farmers who are on our steering group of the project, and they're all involved practically. For the purposes of our project and looking at hedges, we recognise there are a number of different ecosystem services, and given the relatively short term of the project, we wanted to focus on a couple of those. So we looked at how hedges and boundaries influence water and the management of water in the landscape. So they intercept surface flow, they help with infiltration, so they're starting to slow that surface flow, but also they are naturally moving water in a landscape. And then the other focus was biodiversity, which again is a huge subject in itself, but if you look around you can see we have a lot of small fields, and the particular focus is the value of connectivity. So given any area, we have a huge amount of hedges because of the small field system, and the added value that you get for nature from that connectivity was what we wanted to focus on in our particular project. Every farm has grassland, every farm has hedges and boundaries. So we wanted to pick a subject that we could ensure was widespread, as accessible to as many of our farmers as possible, as relevant to those farmers. And we found that through the NEIRF project, we had the opportunity to sort of develop those ideas. How could we work that? How can we develop additional or alternative funding that would reward that work that goes on pretty much every farm? And to do that, how do we sort of quantify what we've got, and how do we quantify its capability when we're talking about ecosystem service provision? We know those things happen, but it's quite hard to provide the evidence, and most of the evidence that the farmers may already have is anecdotal, so it's very hard to prove. So part of what we wanted to do was to be able to include the farmers in that conversation and help them to develop a bit more evidence to prove some of those features that we know it happens, but we can't quantify it. If we can quantify it, then we can also hopefully put that together in a project. So in terms of green finance, we can develop potentially a scheme that would work in parallel to other schemes like SFI, but it would add extra value. It could be layered up with existing schemes as well, but it would be enough financially to actually make that happen. It would be enough to make the difference.
And what do you find are, some of the ecosystems and environmental benefits that you see of the way that you manage your hedgerows?
So we're really blessed here in that we have lots of greater horseshoe bats visiting the farm. That's because of the dung beetle we have with an organic farming system. The dung from the cattle and sheep that supports the dung beetle, which then feed the greater horseshoe bat. So that's one example. We've got a lot of brown hare on the farm still. They're enjoying the foot of the hedge. We've got a lot of bird life in the hedges as well. Within the woods, I know we've got flycatchers now nesting in our woods, which are quite, I think they're on the at-risk list. So that's good to see. But I don't think we're doing anything extraordinary. We're just doing what we've always done, which is looking after the habitats that we've always had. I think that's the important thing. My worry for the future is if we can't maintain these hedges, or if we can't afford to replace the fencing because the grants go, that's one of the first things we've got to stop doing every year. At the end of the day, as a farmer, looking after my animals has to be first and foremost, feeding them and making sure we've got enough forage for the winter. And the maintenance of our hedgerows, I'm afraid, will suffer in some instances because there just won't be the funding to do that. We're hoping that within this demonstration of NEIRF that we can demonstrate the value behind what we're doing, what we're already doing.
Okay, one of the things that we've been doing is working with a local company called Wild Connect, who have developed a sort of relatively simple but robust piece of kit that we can use in the field. And this records audio data. So we have deployed these units for the month of May, July and September, and they are attached within the hedge line, and they record sound 24/7. That data gets taken away and analysed, and that will give us a breakdown of species we're looking at birds and we're looking at bats. I mean, it's been really successful and we didn't know what to expect. Each of the 10 farms clearly have slightly different circumstances, but we've attached the units within a hedge line. We're going through the data now, but it's been amazing because for the month of May, okay, it was nesting season and probably quite busy in terms of birds, we've come up with over 70 species of birds and bats across those 10 farms. And individually, the farms have recorded somewhere between 30 and 50 species, which is amazing. And again, it comes back to that point that we're trying to underline what the farms are doing and the value that they have now, because you might talk to a farmer and they'll say, I don't think you'll find much in this hedge, it's fairly quiet, because you don't know, but the information that you might have is anecdotal and you can't prove it. So this has been great. We've been using these biophones, and this is what they look like in practice in the field. So this unit is attached to the tree or within the hedge line, and it's got a cover, rather like a microphone cover. And these are designed to just reduce interference from noise, for example wind, because they're deployed 24/7 for a month at a time. And this is what the unit looks like, and it's got two fairly simple circuit boards within it with SD cards that are recording data. One is recording audio data for birds and one is recording at a different frequency for bats. This data will be analysed by the company, and they cross-check that through different data sets, and they also use experts to double-check as well. So the initial data that we had quite high counts, but it also included species that we questioned, and because it's basing it on audio data, there can be false positives. So that's why it's really important for robust results to be able to double check it. As I said, this data has been collected across 3 separate months, and we're putting that together now so that we can have that as part of the supporting information for our farms. But what we would like to do is ultimately bring together a kind of a platform or a matrix that can bring together all of those provision services so that you could, in effect, match the interests of potential investors or funders with what is being provided by the farms. So you can almost have a list of, is it high in biodiversity? Is it really well positioned for water management? Is it high in carbon? Does it have cultural and historic significance? And you might have people who want to invest because they have a particular interest in those things. And as ever, the value of the whole is worth more by the fact that you can bring all those things together. So we'd like to develop a scheme that would go down that route. And ultimately, we see it as probably going to be down the route of something that's like voluntary markets, because we want to avoid sort of the high administrative and resource costs of the verification and certification schemes.
So this whole NEIRF project, I'm hoping, gives us a chance to demonstrate how crucial some support is to be able to maintain this for the future. Enhance it as much as we can, but the risk is if it's not funded, if we can't afford to do it, it won't be done.